Right now, it's pretty clear that the ranked meta is pretty different from the pro meta in terms of agent picks, comps, and playstyle. But since VCT Challengers just happened in NA, and we have a better view of what the pros are playing to start off the new year, we felt like it would be cool to take a look at what agents control the pro meta currently, and also give our predictions for the future. What is going on, ProGuides family? It is your host, Sergeant Frost, and we'll be covering the pro meta agents tier list for the first official Riot tournament of the year. Let's not waste any time and hop right into it. As a short heads up, this is the VCT Challengers tourney for NA, which means there are a lot of teams that aren't actually pro that played, but those teams usually don't make it very far. So we base this after filtering out the round of 128 and round of 64 games. This tier list will gauge the upcoming pro meta as we move further into the VCT Pro circuit for 2022. At the top of the S tier, we start this list off with Sova. Sova is pulling his weight in competitive so far this year with an amazingly high 74% pick rate. And that pick rate doesn't even tell the whole story. Apart from the two maps where he's not played, which is Split and Fracture, he has a near 100% pick rate on every other map. Sova's utility is proving crucial for slow and methodical teams that like to play by sniffing out the competition one by one around the map. Sova also has good damage utility and anti-rush tools in his recon dart for defender side as well. He is without a doubt the most important agent on a team still for most teams. For the first time in a while, Jett isn't the highest picked agent in competitive play anymore. She's sitting at a nice 66% pick rate, which isn't the highest for her, but it's nothing to be concerned about. Jett is still the best duelist currently in the meta. She gets the job done as a fast-paced, agile duelist who breaks open bomb sites for teams. She can pull off this job reliably and consistently as well, which is why no other duelist can compete with her for the entry fragging spot on most squads' team comps. Jett is a multi-purpose agent that performs just as good on defense as she does on offense, and that is why she is one of the best agents for pro play right now. All things considered, she's kind of too strong in a lot of people's views currently, and the pro meta seems to agree, so maybe it's time for the devs to take a deeper look at her dash. One agent who's only getting more popular by the week it seems is Astra. She has earned an incredibly high 70% pick rate, and for good reason. Astra functions as both a controller on offense who can smoke the map, and on defense she can operate like a sentinel and use her CC abilities and smokes to deny sights. Astra is going strong in the meta and overshadows most of the other controllers and sentinels with the exception of Viper and Chamber on certain maps. She really is the star of the show right now for smokers, and it's going to take some magic from Brim and Omen to even try to topple her throne. Closing out the S tier is Viper. Viper has a high pick rate of 66%, which is nice for an agent that is mostly only used on a few particular maps like Breeze, Icebox, and Split. Viper is a great agent for teams that want to have a sneaky lockdown defense that works off pressure, or a generally powerful offensive lurk on attack. Viper is also really useful for teams that like to play a post-plant heavy offense, as she has two mollies that can really steal a lot of time off the clock. Viper is surprisingly versatile for an agent that has non-retrievable utility, but that only goes to show how well the pro meta has utilized her abilities. And if you want to make those same plays in ranked or play like a pro with any agent, make sure to come visit ProGuides.com, where our Radiant and Immortal level coaches are more than happy to teach you some high-level tips that can upgrade your gameplay. Anyone can benefit from coaching, so click the link in the description if you're interested in climbing at top speeds. Starting in the A tier, the Frenchman Chamber has been showing up big in pro play. Chamber has definitely earned himself the role of the main sentinel for a lot of teams, and he is holding down that spot gracefully. His kit is perfect for holding his own. 2 tripwires, a TP, a powerful sidearm, and the best sniper in the game. That's all it takes for him to be a one-man show when he's on defense. Chamber has proven to be quite useful on bigger maps such as Breeze and Icebox, as his sniper allows him to take deep sight lines, and some Jett mains like Wardell has been seen making the switch to Chamber and making waves in the competition. Skye's pick rate is surprisingly a bit lower than we expected at 38%, but that does not mean she's bad or unviable by any means. Skye is a utility role player on a team comp, so that means a team has to specifically want her for a certain map in order for them to execute their original game plan. Skye excels at brawling it out on smaller maps, which explains why she has a much higher pick rate on Split, Bind, and Haven. She has great utility to facilitate a team both on offense and defense, which a lot of pro teams find valuable when they know they're going to get into a dogfight of a match. One agent who is a rising star in pro play is KO, and for good reason. For some pro teams, especially teams who are execute heavy on offense, KO's utility is just too good to pass up. His suppression can nullify entire defensive setups on maps like Breeze, Ascent, and Haven, where solo site setups are very common. And KO can make attacking teams' lives much easier with a single press of a button. KO is going to get a lot more popular as time goes on, so expect a lot more teams who don't want to deal with the Fort Knox defensive setups to pick him up. Next up on our list we have Raze, who is surprisingly more valuable than Jett on some maps. Raze has an understandable 27% overall pick rate, but the exception is that she has an over 70% pick rate on Split and Fracture, and she has a 56% pick rate on Bind. Raze is in fact a niche duelist. She fulfills a specific role of scouting with her bot and dealing boatloads of AoE damage, which a lot of pro teams love for map control. Raze can hold her own when entry fragging too, with blast packing around the map, which is something Raze mains and pro play have down to a science, which makes her entry pathing that much more lethal. It's sad to say, but Killjoy's presence in pro play has been slipping slowly but surely over time. KJ sits at a 27% pick rate, which is hard to believe when she was picked in most pro matches in the first half of last year. So why is she slipping in pro play? Well, it's mostly due to the nerfs to her turret and mollies, which makes it harder for her to hold a site as effectively as she used to. And with the rise of Chamber, Astra, and Viper as sentinels that can deny sites just as well, she has seen a much lower pick priority compared to those agents. Killjoy still has been picked a lot on maps like Ascent and Haven where she can set up well and still be useful, but she is not as great as she once was for pro play. But of course, that's not to say that she's not still a formidable pick for teams that have strats around her abilities. She might be down from what she used to be, but she isn't out of the game at all, which is why she is still in the A tier. To start off B tier, we have Neon at the top, but let us explain ourselves on this pick first. We are well aware that Neon has only been picked once so far in this Challengers event, and it was one game on Fracture by the Accrue squad. But in that game, Accrue made Neon look like a hard carry on Fracture with her ability to rotate on a map that is traditionally a nightmare to rotate on. Neon is still too new for us to make a hard judgment call on her future, so we're using this top of B tier ranking as a future projection of what we think she could be. As it stands, we think that she possibly could be even better, but since we still have too little data, we still can't really say she's in the A tier yet. Sage is second up in B tier. She hasn't seen a ton of pro play as she only has real uses on the map Icebox so she could wall off tube, and she is occasionally seen on split when teams want to wall off mid early into the round. Outside of those two niche uses, Sage isn't nearly seen as much, and it seems like she's slipping out of favor with how the other sentinels are stealing the show. Cypher is being overshadowed by Chamber in the pro meta so far. In most situations and maps where a team would normally pick Cypher, Chamber is being picked instead because he brings more dueling power to a team comp. But at the same time, Cypher still brings enough to the table for him to be a strong pick in pro games. There's a lot of things you can do, from tricky defensive setups to deep information gathering. But as it stands, it's not enough to outdo the novelty of Chamber and his offensive tools. Okay, Breach is bad, but not bad at the same time. Breach is not really played on any map in the game except Fracture, where he has a surprisingly high 100% pick rate. It's no secret by now that Breach is a monster on Fracture, as that map seems like it was just designed for his kit to do well. Pro teams have taken heed to this meta shift, so they choose to run with him as their primary initiator, especially since Skye and Sova are not as useful on that map. At the same time, he's also being picked sometimes on Haven where his abilities can break open a site considerably well. Reyna surprisingly is not as popular as most would think in pro play after her initial rise on popularity on Icebox and Breeze. Jet and Raze seem to both have more practical uses than her on most maps. Reyna doesn't offer much in terms of utility or speed to help break open sites, and it seems like the utility meta has evolved once again to require more complicated utility to win rounds. As Neon becomes more meta, Reyna could possibly be pushed out even further as an agent specifically geared for stomping teams rather than being viable in pro play. Moving into the C tier, we are moving into the territory of agents that have only been picked once or not at all. So far, Brim has been picked once, and it was on Fracture by Andbox. Brim doesn't offer much to pro teams since his smoke capabilities are so limited. Brim can get away with that in ranked where the environment is less punishing, and his post plant lets him have some value. But in pro play, he has too many weaknesses that can't be covered up. Now, moving into the unpicked category, we have Omen. Omen is being outshadowed by Astra and Viper in the pro meta, hence why he hasn't been picked. He doesn't have any real CC or damage abilities, which puts him at a bad disadvantage in the meta. And he also has an issue where he can't put multiple smokes down at once. That in itself makes his site executes a lot more telegraphed and clunkier than an agent like Astra or Brimstone. Yoru is unpicked in pro play so far this year, and for obvious reasons. The other duelists are much more reliable and can do a whole lot more than he could ever hope to do in pro play. This can change very quickly though. His new rework is supposed to be promising, and if it actually changes how he is played, he could find his way back into the pro meta. Phoenix is also in the same boat, which is sad to see since he used to be such a staple for maps like Haven. Phoenix is completely overshadowed now by every other duelist, and that is saying something considering he was S tier in the duelist meta around the same time last year. Hopefully some changes come his way though so he can see the light of day in pro play again. And that concludes our patch 4.02 pro meta tier list. If you enjoyed this tier list, make sure to drop a like and subscribe to keep up to date with the latest Valorant news, updates, and guides. Also, make sure to check out our website for truly amazing on-demand coaching. This has been your host, Sergeant Frost, and good luck on the grind this act.